This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. The Broadway smash hit, The Waitress. Wait, is it The Waitress or Waitress? Waitress. Waitress is showing. The Broadway smash hit Waitress the Musical comes to the Arvada Center this fall. This sweet, sassy, feminist musical rom-com tells the story of a small-town pie maker who never gives up on her dreams. This is a show about celebrating friendship, chosen family, and the joys of a good pie. Waitress is showing August 30th through October 13th. Tickets are on sale now at arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. Waitress the Musical. This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. This summer, don't go alone. Try carpooling and combining trips, or take transit to get where you need to go to reduce ground-level ozone. Ozone is the Front Range's biggest air quality issue and a leading cause of respiratory problems, and it's created from pollutants like car exhaust. Want to know when it matters to take these simple steps for better air? Sign up for summer ozone text alerts by sending Better Air CO to 21000 or visit simplestepsbetterair.org. Today on CityCast Denver, did a powerful Venezuelan gang just sneak into Denver? Or was this the week racists across the metro area found a new scapegoat? We're digging into the hysteria surrounding the notorious Tren de Aragua gang. Plus, a beloved coffee shop is moving, a much less beloved movie theater is closing, and why Denverites have stopped having kids. Today is Friday, August 9th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the show about the least patriotic city in the country.
How? Why?
Well, Team USA is playing Team Serbia in men's basketball today.
That's true. I am a Serbian at heart today.
Me too. Serbia all the way. There was a poll in the Denver Nuggets subreddit about this. They were like, "Who are you cheering for?" Because like LeBron, we hate LeBron, I guess.
Yeah, we do. He's because he's a Laker. We hate the Lakers.
We hate the Lakers. But he's Team USA. He's the guy. And yeah, our boy, our big beautiful lunk on the other side.
I'm just happy that he's probably having a really good time too.
Nicola?
Yeah, I bet.
He's with his
being
buds?
with his homies. Yeah. And we always... I
mean, as usual, he doesn't look like he's having a good time.
I know, and he won't express that he's having... Who knows? I would love to ask his wife how she can tell when he's having a good time. I bet she's like, his smile turns up in one corner for 3 seconds, and that's how I know he's having the time of his life.
Well, listeners will know who wins that game by the time this gets out.
True.
So hopefully, I guess.
Go Serbia.
Go Serbia. It's Friday. We're in the 5280 Magazine studios. Bree Davies is here. Hey, Bree.
Good morning.
And joining us, a great returning guest. He works with us here.
I know. It's like he's not a friend of the show. He's part of the.
I am.
He's
the
employed
show.
with us.
Adrian Gonzalez is back. Welcome back.
Good morning, Paul. Hey, Bree.
Hi.
It's been too long. It's nice to have you back.
Definitely too long. Happy to be back.
Have you been watching the Olympics at all?
I have. Big fan. I love it.
Which events? What are your faves?
Breaking, as they call it, breakdancing, surfing.
The new one.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I learned the other day that we used to have, or not we, I didn't organize the Olympics, but they used to have firefighting. And what I say is we need more weird sports or weird activities in the Olympics.
Yeah, because it brings out people that are less traditionally what we think of as athletes, but are really good at something. Breakdancing sounds awesome.
Like 100 years ago, they had tug of war. I think they should bring back tug of war.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
But they shouldn't have professional tug of war people. They should just have the athletes that do the other sports also do tug of war.
Ooh, I like this.
I would love that. Yeah.
I was watching the women's beach volleyball.
Yes.
Because Chris Marlowe, who's a Nuggets announcer, is a former Olympic volleyball player, and he's been an announcer for the Olympics in volleyball for like a decade.
Oh, cool.
Because we were watching it, and Greg was like, "That's a Nuggets guy." And I was like, "There's no way that's a Nuggets guy." And then I Googled it. I was like, "That's Chris Marlowe. It is definitely a Nuggets announcer who also moonlights as a volleyball announcer."
People are talking about Snoop Dogg a lot. I haven't seen anything he's done.
What?
I've been missing him.
What? I mean, talk about the most amazing career arc of all time, going from a purveyor of music that in the 90s was vilified by the media to somebody who's this darling. He's just figured it out. He's really great at being a commentator, and he's fun to listen to, and he's funny.
Yeah.
So,
I
mean, I would listen to him talk about literally anything. But I also have the millennial Gen X ear that just like turns when you hear Snoop Dogg do anything. He has that voice.
Well, before we get to our top story today, we have a little bit of business. We are officially friends of the Friends of Chamber Music. There's going to be some ads on the show next week, I think, but we got the hookup for you. We're giving away 4 free pairs of tickets to new members. So they could be yours if you have not joined already. How we're going to do it is the first 4 people who sign up as new members today, Friday, August 9th, you're going to get a free pair of tickets to any show you want in their upcoming season. So these
are world-renowned musicians, string quartets, piano players, opera singers, just like people that are the best at what they do in this really beautiful experience.
I saw some chamber music a couple years ago at the Newman Center where they do a lot of these shows. Not all of them. They do them at some fun venues around the city too. But it was like the crowd at a chamber music show is a very different kind of thing from a usual concert.
I would assume they're like very tuned in, listening really hard.
Yeah, I mean, also older, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, it's not exclusively for old people. I had a great time. But like the way people would like still cheer for encores and like still treat it like a regular concert, just like seated and calmly.
You had me at seated. I love a good seated show.
Conservatively lit, like conservatively lit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Conservatively
Which is totally my vibe. I mean, I thought I had a great time.
I was gonna say that sounds very like you. Like, yes,
it was great.
Great song.
Call
another.
Encore, please. Encore, please. Yeah. So if you want to elevate your music game, become a member today. Also, support us. That's a pretty nice thing to do. Membership.citycast.fm. First 4 people that join will get these tickets. Also, we're going to give away a pair to existing members. We don't want to exclude existing members from this.
So we'll pull one random existing member and you can get tickets too.
All right, let's get to our top story here. This is such an interesting situation that has really arisen last week. This past week, maybe the last couple of weeks, this conversation has been popping up. But first it was a jewelry store robbery that turned violent. Then it was some shady allegations of violence at a rally for the Venezuelan election in Aurora. Now this week, the city of Aurora has condemned a low-income apartment building, which is the first time they have ever done that, displacing dozens of South American migrant families. But the interesting part is that all of these stories have been linked to a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua that reportedly just showed up in Denver, and it's got the whole city buzzing. Mayor Mike Johnston told KDVR this week that he's, quote, watching this very closely. So I have been too, and I find it fascinating. Adrian, I want to start with you because I know you've done a lot of volunteer work with the immigrant community, super involved in that world. Have you been watching this situation as closely as the mayor?
Well, I can't speak for the mayor. I don't know how closely he's watching. He's a busy guy, but I have, and I'm an immigrant myself. So this is a whole convoluted story, and I think when stories like this come out, it's right in the media and in politics, narrative is everything, and when it's one dimensional, I think for myself, I begin to wonder what else is there? What's happening here? And this might be a 7-hour show, but this is a whole situation, I think, that reminds me of a lot of things. I think obviously personal experience, but speaking for the Venezuelan community and Latin America as a whole, beginning from the United States meddling in South American countries and all over Latin America for business interests, in Venezuela in particular for oil.
Sure.
I mean, the U.S. has been involved in a lot of different coups there. They failed a coup. They supported a coup against Chavez, which is the president that was there before, the current one.
Maduro.
Yeah, Nicolas.
So you're saying that these interventions have created instability and like poor economic conditions that in part have led to the creation of these like super powerful transnational gangs.
Yes. So on the gang side, I think it reminds me of remember the chaos over MS-13. Oh my God, MS-13 is here. They started in a jail somewhere, and now they're everywhere. Be careful. Watch out. And as a person in the public, you get scared. You read these stories and you go, well, what's going to happen? They're talking about killing, having the green light to kill police officers. Folks, that's obviously a concerning storyline. But this, I guess, to bring that up from the past and meddling, this is what happens when you meddle in something. It's about business, and you begin to create instability in other countries. You then force those people to have no other option than to leave. And they make this trek all the way out, right? And there's different stories. There's quote unquote good people. There's quote unquote bad people. There's people of different kinds. And you show up to this country and you're othered. The asylum system, the immigration system is broken. So it's not like I show up and say, hey, I have my paperwork. Here you go. What can I do? It's not that simple. There is no line. There is no real solution for showing up and say, I'm scared. And even when there is, it's complicated, it's convoluted, and then there's a language barrier. So anyway, you show up to these situations and these stories are scary. I watched the video of the robbery, the security video. It's terrifying. I mean, I feel for the folks that were working there and the customers. And then there's a whole other story about the building.
Yes, the apartment building.
That's condemned. You know, the owners have been neglecting that building forever. Then there's the whole post-election Aurora gathering that turned a little crazy, and there's a lot of stories flying around. But anyway, you start to paint this picture of like Venezuelans are one thing, and the issues come with Venezuelans, and some of them might be gang members, and I don't know who they are, but they all look Venezuelan, quote unquote. I don't know what that looks like, but to me, they're dangerous stories. They're dangerous stories to the public and to those immigrant communities. Those are folks that. There's a reason they're in a building like that that's condemned, that's terrible, that's not upkept. And while
it's what they can afford.
It's what they can afford. These people have come to the situation partially, if not mostly, because of meddling by the U.S. They come to the U.S. because there's some hope of opportunity. They get treated like crap. They end up in these situations, and we expect them to behave in this elitist view of like the good immigrant.
Sure.
So anyway, it's a convoluted story, and I think there's a lot of elements that it doesn't just come down to the gang. It doesn't just come down to the election.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, truly, there's so much going on here. I mean, Bree, what do you see? What do you think is the important thing to look at here?
I think kind of what Adrian's talking about, which is just like this group of folks is not a monolith. It's not the gang. I had not heard of this Tren de Agua gang until this week. But I grew up as a teenager in the 90s. The word gang is like a dog whistle. It can really mean so many things, and it's often meant to scare people. It's not to say that this gang does not exist here, but equating them as like a proxy for the entire Venezuelan newcomer community, which I think is what's happening, is really not, it's just not fair. These are very different individual situations, but they all are under this umbrella of Venezuelan people. And it just like, it's such a disservice to these folks like Adrian's saying, all of the things that many of them have gone through. A lot of them are probably trying to escape this gang and gangs just like this. And so I think a lot about when I met some of the women from Pussy Riot, which is an activist group from Russia. And the way that people talk about Russia in America is like whatever Putin has done, whatever the KGB did, that's just Russia. And so when you meet a Russian person, these are women that were actively fighting against the government through art. They're not part of the Russia that everybody is talking about. So it's just like thinking about and being cognizant of that as we read the news and the lack of context around the around the U.S.'s involvement in South American issues for decades. That's not the context we get in the everyday coverage when someone says a gang has taken over something. Or people are going crazy in this parking lot over an election. Like, has anyone ever seen how Americans act about elections? Like, so I think it's the most important thing for me here is to remember that each situation and individual is different and they're all experiencing something that we can't put under one umbrella.
Can we talk about the gang just a little bit?
Yeah. Paul does.
I have some suspicions about whether or not this gang is even here. I talked to somebody yesterday about that. But this gang, like, I also hadn't heard about it until this week, but some of the stories about this gang are nuts. Like the Tocaron prison, they apparently took over. The guy who runs this gang now controls this prison where he was incarcerated, and prisoners were able to roam freely. This is from the BBC. Roam freely inside the penitentiary, which had hotel-like facilities, including a pool, nightclub, and a mini zoo. Family members moved into the prison, and then the Venezuelan government had to send basically an army to take the prison back from the gang a couple of years ago.
This is so
it's like Scarface or something. It's wild.
The Scarface is an apt comparison, though, because we have to remember, gang is a big word that means a lot of things, but we also idolize it in American culture to a certain extent.
I know, it's so interesting that way. The romanticizing these anti-heroes, like El Chapo. I'm going to see Peso Pluma at Ball Arena, and he sings about this stuff. He's one of his most famous songs. He's like, I follow Chapo Guzman, he's my guy, and what is happening here?
But it's the same way that Scarface the movie continues to influence today culture, musically, artistically.
And I think there's a connection there just between our love in this country of these gang stories. They're amazing, right? They're entertaining. We're drawn to those stories. We sort of idolize them in some way, even though there's bad elements. And then you begin to build these narratives about this Venezuelan gang that's here, that the story that you talked about, and they've got the green light to kill police officers. It sounds like a movie, right? And I'm reminded of coming here, going to middle school and high school. Every school has a dress code, right? We strictly had a dress code against quote unquote gang dressing. And I went to Skyline High School in Longmont, which is very close to Meade, a lot of rural areas. We had kids. Several days a week, white kids coming into school wearing Confederate flags. But I've never been involved in a gang. Y'all know me. I'm a nerd. I play the cello, for Christ's sake. I got detention once for wearing black Dickies. You couldn't wear flannels, right? But I'm facing a kid that's wearing a Confederate flag. And again, there's these narratives of what is allowed and what isn't, and we tend to idolize this, and that's when these stories sort of get dangerous because you have an image. I have an image. I've seen Narcos. I listen to Peso Pluma. I listen to Los Tigres del Norte. Right? There's all these stories that we love and idolize and we're connected to. So as soon as I hear a story about a Venezuelan gang that started in a prison, everyone's brain has already put the story together, the images, right?
So you mentioned this green light to kill cops thing. I just want to put some facts on that because maybe people haven't heard about that. So I first saw this in the New York Post. It's a screenshot of a memo from Homeland Security Investigations. It says that, and I'm quoting, Albuquerque Police Department received information from federal partners regarding possible green light attacks on law enforcement from the Tren de Aragua criminal organization operating in Denver, Colorado. So these law enforcement sources are asserting that this gang is here, but is it actually here? That's what I want to get back to, because I talked to past guest Cesar Cuauhtemoc Garcia Hernandez, who we had on to talk about the migrant situation a couple of months ago. I just thought he was fascinating. He wrote a great book called Welcome the Wretched, and he was like, show me some evidence that this gang is here. Yes. Before we start talking about this, let's prove it. Because all these people, like the management company of this apartment, they have just asserted that the gang has taken over and that it's at other places in Aurora too. And the mayor says he's watching it closely. Like, none of those things are evidence. And he also alerted me to the fact that this particular gang has already been a boogeyman for Republican politicians this year. I think we're actually going to hear more about it as the presidential election evolves. Because there's a situation with Laken Riley, this woman who was killed in Georgia, murdered by a migrant, a person who happens to be the brother of one of the leaders of this gang, Tren de Aragua. So that's the connection. Like, and these Republican politicians, they put pressure on the Biden administration to impose sanctions on this particular gang. Like, I think there might have been something in the heads of the property management company already.
I think they're just using this blank excuse. Period.
For sure, yeah.
Like, it's not based in anything.
Well, maybe it is. I mean, if they can produce some evidence. But then even then, then it's just a police matter. We have other gangs. Deal with it like a gang. It's not some huge sensational issue.
I think the saddest part, too, about the apartment situation is these are folks that are, like you said, they're just trying to exist here, Adrian. And, it's hard to get an apartment. Anyone knows it's expensive to get an apartment here in Colorado. And these are folks that are coming with nothing. They found a place that they could basically utilize as shelter. They were organizing to get their own trash picked up. It's not like they weren't trying to deal with the situation at hand. But this management company has just thrown their hands up and are using the gang thing as an excuse. And who ultimately is really harmed? The people that came here trying to get away from things that were harming them in the first place. Like, putting out dozens of families. I can't, the condemning the building part on the part of the city of Aurora does not make sense to me, because where do you think those people are going to go? And we've already made it illegal to exist on the street. So what do they think is the solution? It doesn't, does it matter if it's condemned? Because where else are they going to go? I mean,
well, I think the city of Aurora would say, like, it's more dangerous to be in the building, right?
Than be on the street?
Perhaps. I mean, if it's a really, really bad building, if it's dangerous, if it's infested with rats, with the plague or something, I don't know why people make those decisions. That's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
I'm just
very
basing
challenging
it on Aurora's approach to homelessness in general has not been great.
I agree.
And so they're actively making people homeless.
Yeah, I mean, there's a quote, like you're saying, from a person named Javier Hidalgo who lives in this building. He says, if they evict us, this is in the Denver Post, if they evict us, we're going to have to get some tents.
Yeah.
So that's literally what is going to happen.
Well, and Mayor Kaufman in Aurora's whole thing is like, if you want to access our services here as a homeless person, you better be ready to work. You think these folks don't want to work? A lot of them are working. Like, they're in a position where what do they do? They want to get out of this. They want to have a better life. And I just feel like the city of Aurora is not helping as much as just putting them in a corner.
Yeah, but it's also a complicated situation, housing, homelessness in general, and in this situation, some of these folks can't work, and it's hard to put the entire weight of a broken immigration system and years of meddling for U.S. interests on Aurora, on a city like Aurora or Denver or anywhere, Chicago. It's hard to put that on there because you can't. The city itself can't fix it. So I do feel for the people that work in that city, somewhat. You know, as far as Mike. I lived in a homeless camp for a week. Kaufman, that's a whole nother story. But it is complicated, and it's hard to put all of that weight on one city to fix essentially what is a global problem.
I also feel like Denver has taken a different approach, I guess would be what I would say.
I mean, they're doing a lot
I feel like our
wrong.
mayor has really actively tried to not make people
Well, there's
homeless.
good faith efforts and bad faith
Right,
efforts, and
true.
you know where Aurora falls.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, to Mike Kaufman again, he made a comment after this rally that we've talked about, where there was allegedly violence, allegedly shots fired at police vehicles. I don't think anyone's produced any evidence of that, at least according to 9 News. And Mike Kaufman made a statement after this rally. He said on Facebook, there was an unfortunate incident yesterday when members of the Venezuelan immigrant community decided to meet up, blah, 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 blah. My message to the leaders of the Venezuelan immigrant community is that while I fully understand the reason for your celebration, that doesn't excuse your community from acting responsibly, and you owe the residents of my city an apology for the unacceptable conduct demonstrated by far too many of your community members.
I mean, this is classic politics, classic political messaging. The amount of craziness that happens in Aurora and Denver. I mean, the things I saw mobs of white people do after Biden won the election in 2020 in the city. Insane. No one is sitting here blaming, everyone here, right? No one's sitting to the white community. You need to get your community in check, right? And I understand the frustration and the hardship of having a situation like this. But again, there was a statement by a council member, Danielle Jurinsky, who was throwing out these narratives, right? She's saying that she's getting text messages from cops during this gathering, that there's stabbing, shootings, there's people getting hurt, there's cop cars getting destroyed, right? And then it turns around and the Aurora Police Department tweeted a statement about clearing up that none of those situations have been corroborated. They were getting complaints about noise and a bit of rowdiness, as happens in a crowd of 4,000 people. But what is happening? I mean, this is classic story, like political storytelling.
Also, I want to go back to Kaufman's statement because he for many years of his political career, has claimed to be a friend to immigrants, an advocate for the immigrant community in Aurora in particular. And that statement to me lies right in the face of his claims. Yeah, he's othering these folks as much as distancing himself as much as he possibly can.
It's some of my best friends are black, right? It's like, yes, I would love for them to succeed, but
there's some
somewhere
good
over there.
and bad ones. Yeah.
As long as they're good
them,
people.
You, us.
Yeah. It's very powerful language.
I think it's actually far overdue, though. But before we wrap up, that Stan Kroenke apologizes for the trash left over after the Nuggets victory parade last year. I thought that was an embarrassment to our city, and that I'm still waiting for him to apologize. The leader of the Nuggets community.
The leader of the Nuggets community.
He should be ashamed of what he did, and that
those community members.
Yes, those people.
Those Nuggets community members.
Very embarrassing.
Of the Nuggets community.
All right, so let's leave it there. We're probably going to talk about this more. Just fascinating situation. But we're going to take a quick break and come back with a hot topic: birth rates. This episode is brought to you by Incogni, because data brokers are collecting and selling your personal information every day. I'm talking about your social security number, your address, health and financial records, and everything else they can get their hands on, and they're selling it to the highest bidder. Scammers, total strangers, insurance companies, banks, businesses, and even the government are using your personal information to target you. So it's time to check out Incogni. That's Incogni. Incogni scrubs your personal info from the web. Simple as that. Incogni takes only 3 minutes to set up, tackles more than 180 data brokers and people search sites, and they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your data, your time, and your sanity. Get Incogni today and never look back. Use the code CITYCAST for 55% off the annual plan at incogni.com. That's Incogni.com.
This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon, the farmer's market delivered. Miss the farmer's market this weekend? Don't fret. Pine Melon has got you covered, delivering Colorado's freshest local produce straight to your doorstep. Pine Melon is a next-generation grocery delivery app that partners with over 200 local farmers, ranchers, and producers in Colorado. With a mission to transform Denver's food system, empower local makers, and promote community well-being, they make supporting local both easy and rewarding. Enjoy high-quality meats, eggs, and dairy from small local farms, as well as a wide variety of pantry staples, all delivered straight to you. The best part? Pine Melon offers same-day delivery to Denver and Boulder within a 2-hour window. No subscription necessary. Support local today and use promo code CityCastDenver for $75 off your first delivery at pinemelon.com. Enjoy the best of the farmer's market, even when you can't make it there yourself.
All right, and we're back. We got a real hot topic today, as I mentioned. I'm going to call it a sequel to the episode a few weeks back about how hard dating is in Denver right now. But the Colorado Sun reported this week that birth rates across the whole country are dropping, but Denver County especially is seeing big drops. Quote, Denver County experienced the second largest decline in births among the 100 most populous counties in the country from 2021 to 2022, leading to declining enrollment at schools and big community questions. So that's what I want to talk about, some of these big community questions. But Bree, let's start with why do you think Denverites are having fewer kids?
I think there's a lot of reasons that are really outlined in this story, but I mean, it's cost, I think, is probably one of the biggest ones. It's not cheap to live here, and you have to have the space to put a child. To be fair, a lot of folks, I even was thinking about, I live in a 600 square foot house was built in 1938. People were raising 10 kids in there at some point. It's possible, but by current standards today, maybe not so much. I would say that's one of the reasons we decided to have one child is where else were we going to put the other one? And I think that that's a real aspect of this. Childcare is incredibly expensive, hard to get. I mean, you have to get on these waiting lists. It's all this, it's just insane planning. You have to get on a waiting list to get your kid in childcare before the child is born. So in most cases. So I think that that's a huge part of it. I also think that my generation, I think, prioritized career a little bit more in some aspects. I think it depends on where you grew up and your experience within your own family. But I know just for me, it was I was hammered home that you were on birth control and you were in high school and you will not have a kid when you're young. I still have a ton of friends who had kids when they were young. I have friends that waited as long as I did. But I just think there's so many factors at play that it's interesting that Denver is shaking out this way.
Yeah, that's what I find interesting
about it. And I think that might be a little bit to the dating conversation. And the things that we learned in that dating conversation is it may be hard for folks to find the person they want to settle down with, so they end up maybe going back to the Midwest or wherever they grew up to do that part of their life. So we're just attracting young people, and they're just maybe leaving when they're ready to do that.
Adrian, how about you? What are you seeing here?
Well, I think I have a bias, as I'm a millennial, married now, dated in Denver for a long time. What a hellscape. And have chosen not to have children. And I'm sure that there's a lot of reason. I think personally, it's definitely the money, whatever the keywords are, the economy, how expensive it is, how hard it is, prioritizing career. But it's really interesting that it's happening in Denver, and it makes sense. I mean, looking at some of the data here from this report, it's usually in metro areas, right? And it happens to be the most expensive. It's tighter spaces. I don't know. I'm not well versed in the economics of lower child rates, but I'm kind of being sick. I'm kind of getting sick of being told that I need to live a certain lifestyle for the good of the economy. I mean,
do you think that's the message? Like, there's like, Mr. Market wants you to have kids.
Well, I mean, I think it's more complex than that. There are, from what I understand, again, from reading there was a CNBC report bemoaning again the lower birth rates. Economists talk about this all the time and the impact that it has on the global economy and schools. Right? We talked about schools. There was a lot of in that Colorado Sun story about it, and there was a quote here from the CNBC article. That says the future trends in fertility rates and live births will propagate shifts in global population dynamics, driving changes to internal relations and geopolitical environments. It goes on to say a lot of different economics speak about it, but essentially saying that by 2100, just 6 countries are expected to have population replacing birth rates, which means you're having the same amount of kids to replace the population that's currently here. And those nations are mostly African nations. There's Chad, Niger, Tonga, the Pacific Islands of Samoa.
Interesting.
Right. So I know there's a narrative here that I don't have the brain to understand. I'm sure it does have an effect, but I'm not really interested in continuing to overpopulate this world personally.
Yeah, my wife and I actually decided we're not going to have grandkids. That's our part of this.
Do you guys have any grandkids in your families right now?
I mean,
do you have any nieces and nephews?
My parents have grandkids.
Okay.
My brother, his
so
family had kids.
There's some kids in the family. I'm just thinking about how much attention it takes away from my age group and goes right on to the grandkids. It's been phenomenal. Our parents are just hyper focused on the grandkids. It's great.
It's very Gen X. They just skipped you all together.
They really, it's just, please stop paying attention. Pay attention to my child. There was a quote I thought that was really interesting in this piece, though, that was from a professor of sociology. She says, our cultural expectations of what it means to be a good parent keep ratcheting up. The expectation that parents, particularly mothers, invest more in each child can make parenting feel like more work. And that resonated with me so much. Because I'm from a family of 5 children, and it's not that my parents weren't involved in our lives, but we did a lot of parenting of each other and just go outside and don't come back until dark. Do whatever you're going to do. I would never do that now. I'm on my kid, watching him like a hawk. And I also just think about my mom had to work a lot when I was a kid. And so I'm very cognizant of how much work I do and how much time I'm able to spend with my kid, because I know the first 3 years of their lives is so crucial to the attachment that they have to you and the connections that they have with you. And it's not that my parents didn't think about that, but I do feel socially there's a lot more pressure too, just to be the perfect parent, the best parent, have your kids in the best programs and have your kids in the nicest clothes and not to be social media is the problem, but it definitely gives us ideas of what we should be doing as parents. And I think that that's a little bit of maybe the pressure that sometimes people don't want to feel or take on, or I don't know. One kid is plenty for me. And I have a couple friends who are we're one and done. This is good for us. And I think that's a pretty big shift from the age, from millennial Gen Xers, that we came from bigger families.
Yeah. Bree, did you always know that you wanted to have kids?
I did not. I didn't know.
You just met Greg and it was this man.
Well,
we
kind
need to have
of.
a baby. Yeah.
It was it really depended to me on if I met a person I liked enough to spend the rest of my life with co-parenting someone. And that was the first time I met somebody, and I was 33 years old. That was the first time I met that person. And so we had a very long conversation about it because it took us 6 years to have one kid. We went through a lot of stuff. And right before I got pregnant, we had made the decision that if it doesn't work out in the next year, we are perfectly fine with being the best aunts and uncles we could be. And we made that decision. We ended up having one kid. But yeah, it was really, to me, it was very dependent on the person. If I met the right person, yes.
And it sounds like from this Colorado Sun story and just from friends and living and talking to people my age, that there's not a lot of, particularly women, certainly as a man, I think there's a whole different stigma there, but there's not a lot of women or young people in general that feel like this is a choice, right? That they're making a choice consciously, like you're talking about. But maybe I would like to have one. Maybe it's the right person. It's sort of expected of you. You better find somebody. You've got to work. When are you going to have a kid?
Yeah, the pressure there is real. It can be your cultural stuff, family stuff. I had a family that was very like, do not have a kid until you are absolutely ready to have a kid. And then they were like, where are the grandkids? I was like, do you remember all that messaging you were giving me as a teenager? Like, do not have a child until you are absolutely ready. But I just think that in my friend group, it spans the gamut. My best friend has 4 boys. I have 3 friends just like me that have 1 child and that's it. I would say over half of my friends don't have kids and aren't married. And it's such a wide variety of types of people. And I think the career thing also, I just will mention for women, I've noticed when women get to a point in their career where they have the money and the resources and the healthcare, they get pregnant. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of older moms is we're finally getting to the point where we can handle it. But like I worked freelance for 10 years. I'm not going to have a kid on a freelance salary with no insurance. So a lot of factors.
Yeah. So we put this story in our newsletter earlier this week and asked for readers to weigh in. There's one response we got from Luke T. I'd love to share and see what y'all think. Because it speaks to this pressure and the resentment. Like, I think that's why this gets so fraught. And people like, if you decide you're not going to have kids, you're like, oh, no way I'm not. This is an ethical, yeah. Anyway, Luke T says, hi, Hey Denver /CityCast folks. First off, thanks for the great newsletter and content. You're welcome, Luke. I love this city and it's fun seeing what's going on. No, keep doing what you, for more compliments. Luke says, on the procreation question, I'm a 30-year-old male. I've never really wanted kids, although now that I'm a bit more settled, it has seemed much more reasonable than ever from a personal standpoint. However, every other external factor points to the contrary. I feel like I'd be bringing someone into a burning planet with people at the helm who don't care at all for the future. Costs are rising. I've wanted to buy a home for years and haven't been able to, and things seem to generally be getting more chaotic. It's a constant internal struggle. Having a kid seems like a fun time, but also obviously tons of work and effort. I tend to think I'm an optimist, but my views on having kids are pessimistic because my hope for the future wanes more each day. So no kids for now. The pessimism optimism thing was what interested me about Luke's comment there.
It is a big thing to think about, bringing a person into the world. Like the world that we live in today, we're bringing someone into that world. I know a lot of people that feel very similarly. I had someone very close to me say when I told them I was pregnant, like, you're really going to, you're bringing a child into this world? And I was like, oh, yes. So I think that's a totally valid concern. Also, the affordability component is so real.
That's what bummed me out, though, because it's about Denver. Like, Denver is so low on this list. Like, are people more pessimistic here about the future?
Maybe because they can't afford it. Like, the things that they believe they need to have a child, which I would agree. I wanted to have a house before I had a kid. But the average person, it's just getting harder and harder and harder. So if we can't make those other steps before we have a kid, we may just not have a kid at all. Because, like, I don't want to you can raise a kid in an apartment. Again, totally feasible, happens every day. People do it all the time. I just think sometimes people think, once I get to this thing, then I will have the kid. And then they realize, oh, wait, I'm too old. So,
yeah. Perhaps it's changing narratives too. I think in this newer generations, I think it's been expected, and in older generations that you maybe had. Yes, it is hard. I'm sure folks, my parents, your parents, had hardships.
Yeah.
They worried about these things. We were raised in a small apartment. When we moved to this country, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with 6 other people, plus the 4 of us. And the hardships are there, but I think their conversations. The conversations are changing for younger generations. What if I don't have a kid?
Yeah.
Do I have to? Maybe if I have that choice.
Do I have to? That's a great question, is do I have to? And that pressure definitely has changed, I think. It depends on your culture or your religion too can really weigh into it. I mean, I'm Catholic, so
I mean,
Catholic families aren't known for
I should have 7 kids by now. Way behind.
We're not known for not having a ton of kids. But it bums me out for Denver too in particular, but I understand why people make that choice. And I also think there's so much pressure on people to still have kids, even like, well, you're not going to have kids. You never thought about it. Like, that stuff is so weird to me. I never ask people that. I genuinely don't. It doesn't matter to me. If you want to have kids, cool. If you don't want to have kids, cool. If you want to talk about what it was like, sure, I'll talk to you about it. It's the single greatest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I couldn't imagine before I had a kid how amazing it would feel to have this person. But I also know that doesn't make me who I am. So my 2 closest friends are both single, in their late 30s and early 40s, not married, don't have kids, don't care. They love being an aunt and they love being an uncle. That's enough for them. And it doesn't even need to be enough. That is what they want. Great. I just think there needs to be less stigma on people who don't want to have kids because it's frankly nobody's business.
All right, well, I think that's a good place to end. We're going to take one more break and come back with wins and fails.
Whether you're a freshman or a senior who's seen it all, IKEA has everything you need to make your college space truly yours. Whatever your style, bring your dream dorm or apartment to life with their range of IKEA comforters, sheets, pillows, mattress protectors, rugs, and more. Plus, you can make the most out of any living space with IKEA's smart and stylish storage options. The best part? It's all affordable. Shop now at IKEA-USA.com or visit your local IKEA store to shop today.
Want to save on some of the biggest names in streaming on the network made for streaming? X marks the spot. Get Xfinity Internet and add the new Stream Saver that includes Peacock, Apple TV Plus, and Netflix. Just $15 a month. All your favorites, all in one place, only from Xfinity. So go ahead and binge some shows, stream some movies, and save some money all at the same time. For more watching and less spending, X marks the spot. Switch at Xfinity.com today. Restrictions apply. Taxes extra. Price subject to change.
All right, and we're back. Time for the best way to end the week. Rocky Mountain highs and lows, a.k.a. our wins and fails of the week. Each of us brought a recent local something we think is a win and another we think is a fail, and we're going to talk about them. So fails first, as always, and I'm going to go first.
Go for it.
My fail, I chose this one for you, Adrian. I don't know if we have the same one, but this week, Denver lost another movie theater, the Chez Artiste.
I know.
Closed today as we're recording this, but when you hear this, it will have closed. I saw there was a protest scheduled tonight, which I think is just bizarre.
There is?
Because it's probably going to be the most people at the Chez Artiste in years. No one's favorite theater, in my opinion. Sorry, all the people hand-wringing over this.
I heard from our friend at the Steve Film Center, Keith Garcia, that it was one of their better performing movie theaters in the Landmark Movie Theater Company in Colorado, at least. I don't know about elsewhere.
I would be surprised, though. I do know. I mean, yes, I did hear from one person Saturday after the news broke last week that they were upset that the place was closing. I know there's other people out there that loved the Chez Artiste. They had this classic film series. They showed movies you can't see anywhere else. So I am a little conflicted about it, and I will miss it, even though I didn't go a lot and didn't know anyone who went a lot. I would love to see those numbers where it falls against like the Mayan. So it's just kind of hard to believe. Like, come on.
When your quote art house is owned by a corporation, this is kind of can be what happens. It's just like,
what do you mean?
It's not surprising to me. It's not an independently run theater. That's, I think, the misconception here, especially with Esquire. I think people thought that too. It's like, oh, this is an indie theater. Like, no, they might show indie films, but they're not an indie theater. They're owned by a corporation. It's not a nonprofit arts-related group that runs it. It's not a family-owned theater that's been here for 75 years. It's a corporation. If it's low performing, it's low performing.
Yeah. Adrian, speak to the market. You used to work in the film world. You tell us what's really happening.
Yeah, I'm a reformed film industry, I don't know.
Hollywood Insider?
Hollywood Insider. Wow, that makes me sound so important. It's always sad to see a theater close, no matter what. The industry's changing. I think we've had this conversation several times. I haven't been there for years. I think it's one of those things where I go, man, I should go check it out. And then I go and I'm reminded why I don't. Last time I saw you, Paul, I think you had gone to see a movie and I asked you, oh, how was it? And you gave me a look that like brought me right back. I hadn't been in years, and it brought me right back to sitting in those seats at the Charities.
It's just kind of small.
And it doesn't have
three screens.
It doesn't have the charm of the Mayan.
No, the Mayan is like gorgeous.
Right.
The Charities, like it's in a strip mall.
Yeah.
It's not the parking's. It's just not distinctive in any way. And the screens weren't that big. Like I practically got a bigger screen in my house. I can watch movies. But yeah, I saw Horizon there, Kevin Costner's movie. I wish more people saw that because. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, you sat at 3.5 hours in those chairs, huh? In those seats.
So maybe you're saying
super
it just kind of wasn't a great theater?
I mean, it wasn't, and none of every theater needs to be like recliners and crazy sound and all that. I think the access to movies, particularly in a place that's outside of the metro area, even if it's in a strip mall, for some of those communities to be able to take their kids to movies, there are movie lovers out there. And they should have more options than just like a Regal or an AMC with crazy sound. And, every time one of these theaters closes, I wonder to myself, maybe I'll take it over. And they have the equipment. I'll start a little festival or something. And then I remember why, the things that I've been through in the industry.
I've been daydreaming about the exact same thing.
Paul,
same thing.
Let's talk after the show.
We should.
Well, it is still a bummer. I agree. This is a bummer.
Yeah, I don't think we're conveying
been
that this is a
ragging on
fail.
it so
but
hard.
It is sad when the theater closes. You're right, Adrian. But people just aren't going to the theater that much. Like, I think you might be wrong about not every theater needing those like amenities and the super comfy seats. Like,
but it has to
I
have
think
the
they
other
do to convince people to get off their butts.
Or the other thing, which is the charm and the throwbackness and the I'm having an immersive experience at the Mayan of like back in the day, this feeling that there's that, and then there's I want to lay down at the movies. I want to fully
lounge.
Yeah, I literally want to bring a blanket and lay down and have unlimited popcorn or whatever. Like
get a Deadpool themed Sprite concoction from the Freestyle machine at the AMC 9th in Colorado. It's awesome what they're doing there. It's a great theater.
Love that, yeah.
So like maybe the Chez Artistes was just in the middle and just like extremely mediocre compared to both of those experiences.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it needs one or the other. I was just in LA a few weeks ago, and I went to the Chinese theater to see Maxine. I just thought it was a great opportunity. There's a scene in the movie. It's set in like 70s or 80s Hollywood, and it's not great. I mean, it's dirty and it's uncomfortable. And there were 2 other people in this theater of like 200 seats. But you're at the Chinese theater. I mean, I spent half an hour taking pictures.
Absolutely.
And it was amazing. So I think this is a theater that kind of didn't quite have the charm and didn't quite have the amenities.
Yeah.
Well,
rest in peace, Chez Artistes.
Yep. Goodbye. Au revoir, as they say. Bree, you want to go next? Give us your fail.
Mine's also a landmark business here in Denver, Mutiny Information Cafe. Posted on Instagram this week that they can no longer afford to be on South Broadway, and they are moving to South Broadway in Inglewood. While I'm so glad that they're still existing and that they're going to find a new home, this is the thing about Denver that just sucks. This kind of place is so crucial to the culture of that block. It is a hangout. It's one of those few places where anybody can hang out. You don't have to have a ton of money. They don't it's just like there's not. Some places in Denver just feel too fancy for most people to be in, especially coffee shops, legitimately. And this was a place that was just like anybody could come. And they facilitated live music, readings from local authors, game nights, all these different groups. I mean, they're the reason that I had a podcast to begin with. When Corey Healy, friend of the show, comedian, was working at Mutiny, he called me up and said, "Hey, we have a podcast network. Do you want to do a podcast here?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And I got that space for free to have a community event once a month. And it was so crucial to my career as a journalist. And they do that for so many people and so many things and so many groups. And it's just one of those things that's like priceless. You can't put a price on it. And when it comes down to a fight over rent, that stuff isn't taken into consideration. And I just think this is a tremendous loss for South Broadway. And it's a bummer to me for Denver. We're losing a place in a central location that is also really walkable and has been a beacon of hope and safe space for so many people in Denver. So I'm Mutiny, I love you guys. I can't wait for you to move into your new home, but I'm sorry that you're being pushed out of the neighborhood that you helped make really amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's where I first met Bree Davies, actually, for one of your
in
podcasts at Mutiny.
My God.
And that's where I met a lot of wonderful folks that I made friends with when I first moved out here to Denver from Longmont, from the Goonies up there.
You can
in the
just
Great
like
White North.
hang, and it's not weird to just talk to
Yeah.
strangers. And just
I feel the
Very
exact
sad.
same way. I have very similar experience to you, Brie. That I, done shows there, met people there. It was always welcoming. I got a little emotional about this when I saw the notice about it last night. Like this is one of those Denver places. It's just
it's heartbreaking.
it's hard to imagine South Broadway without it.
Yeah, the culture of South Broadway is really embodied in a place like Mutiny, and I just think that it's going to be a big hole. We're going to be missing something there.
But I think I just want this to be a call to action a little bit. Like talking about the Chez Artiste and Mutiny moving, getting priced out. Like these are businesses that didn't have money to pay their rent because people were not patronizing them.
Well,
So-
it's that, and rents go up. And it's hard sometimes to compete with whatever I'm hearing you, Paul, but I think it can go both ways. But I agree. More people could go there.
If you have a place you love in the city right now, go spend money there this weekend. Go support them.
Tell other
don't let
people
this
to go
happen.
there.
Yeah, spread the love. Don't gatekeep the great places. Go support them. Make this the place that you want it to be.
Yeah.
So we're not going out and protesting a closure of a theater that no one has been to in years. Adrian, what's your fail?
My fail is a story from Michael Booth at the Colorado Sun about 2 llamas in the San Juans that have been missing.
This is so sad.
Sad. This article is very entertaining. But there were essentially this person hiking with their 2 llamas. They go by the name Rones and Vio, having a grand old time, hanging out, and a sheepdog comes out of nowhere and starts attacking them. And so, they ran away and have been missing since. This is a sad story. I love llamas.
Yeah, this is cute. And I want to know where they went. What happened?
They've been looking
everyone
for
does.
them. They just
What the hell?
they got spooked by. I guess this is actually a kind of a problem with some sheepdogs that they get really aggressive, and this sheepdog just came out of nowhere and spooked them, and they took off. And there have been like days-long searches for these llamas, and they still can't find them.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Where could they have gone?
I mean, the mountains they're
The
vast.
mountains are vast, yeah.
I'm like asking the questions everyone's been asking since this happened.
So
no one knows,
where did they
Paul.
go?
But where are
I
they?
don't know,
though?
Paul.
Did they follow
That's what their
the
owner
tracks?
wants to know. Where did they go? Poor
Yes.
llamas.
All right, let's talk about wins. Bree, you want to give us a win?
Yeah, Wash Park celebrated 125 years this week. How awesome is that?
Wow.
It's one of those few things that could stick around in Denver for a long time, I guess. It's part of our incredible park system, which is this landmark piece of what makes Denver really beautiful. Is we have this great network of parks, and Wash Park is one of my favorite parks. The people watching, unparalleled. The walking trails, awesome. Playgrounds, rule. I love the boathouse, absolutely gorgeous. To me, it's just one of those things in Denver that makes Denver really special. And it's pretty cool that it's been around for 125 years.
I'd say it's a top 5 park in the city. I don't know if it's my number one.
That's my number one.
That's your number one?
For sure. It's when I go to the most.
What's your one,
It's the
Adrian?
beginning of another Best Parks in Denver episode.
I feel like Sloan's Lake is up there for me. I like a water feature in a
Sloan's
park,
Lake.
but I'm not going to pick City Park as my number one.
Cheeseman all the way.
Cheeseman, I think
dead
it's
bodies
Cheeseman.
underneath me.
Yeah, centrally, just the
Yes.
perfect location if you live in
Weird
that
games.
neighborhood.
It's fun.
That's a great park.
Cheeseman is a great park. But
Adrian, your win, though.
My win is this story about the city of Denver hoping to build hundreds of miles of bike lanes in the city. This is a butt of an
that's
idea.
really interesting.
They're talking about it. They want to do it. They're gathering information now, so it's nothing concrete. The cynic in me feels like this is going to go nowhere. Kind of like that conversation about a whole nother parking, losing parking to bike lanes. I mean,
Right.
again, that's a whole nother conversation. But I like that the city of Denver is taking a look at this and wants to commit some time and funds to building other transportation than cars.
Mm-hmm. I'm totally with you. Our
That's
friend
great.
Nate Miner was tweeting about this week, and like he put the list of like where they're planning to build protected bike lanes, and it was like streets that it's hard to imagine, like Colorado Boulevard with a protected bike lane on either side. Like, I mean, I can't imagine
they have
biking
to
on there right now.
truly be protected because, I mean, Colorado
Strap on
Boulevard.
a suit of armor and go on your bike
Seriously.
on Colorado Boulevard. But that, like, imagine in 20 years if there's protected bike lanes and there's a BRT lane in the middle.
That's what I was thinking
it
too.
would completely transform that.
It's the
road.
beginning
It would
of the
be-
change of the infrastructure. I agree. The BRT will make it even better.
Yeah, these are changes that take a long time, and I think this is a good start. You start the conversation, there's arguments, we start to change some opinions, and this is good. And maybe all that will come out is one tiny bike lane somewhere in a safe road that's already kind of small. But that's a start.
It's a start.
Well, I look forward to all of the fights about every single inch of those bike lanes.
Paul, what about you?
All right, so my win's a fun one. It comes to from an unexpected place. Normally, Idaho Springs, like not my favorite place in Colorado. I kind of feel the way about Idaho Springs the way Stephen King feels about small towns in Maine. Like there's just some like inherent evil going on there that irks me.
Is this Bojo's related?
Yeah, it's Bojo's related. Yeah,
Okay. Just checking.
Bojo's is like my Pennywise the Clown.
Same vibe.
And Pennywise is coming to a neighborhood near you. In DU
Do you?
soon.
But here's what's happening in Idaho Springs. It just sounds so cool. They're building a gondola in this old mine, the Argo mine. And it just sounds like the whole town's on board and they're building like all sorts of stuff. Like the Denver Post reported on this and painted a picture that I want to visit this. Quote, when the project is finished, the gondola's upper terminal will stand beside a 3-level facility called the Outpost, containing the Sun and Moon Saloon, a whiskey bar called Lovely's Salon, food and beverage options in an area called the Gold Bar, an elevator with stops on all 3 levels with a pedestrian plaza with seating and tables. There will be a 300-seat terraced amphitheater suitable for musical entertainment, weddings, and other events. And then the best part, a trestle will be built allowing visitors to stroll out and above the slope of the mountain to an observation platform on a straight line toward Mount Blue Sky.
That sounds lovely.
That sounds phenomenal.
And Idaho Springs is such a quick drive.
Yeah, it's just like 45 minutes up the road.
Be one of those great places to take somebody who's visiting. Sounds great.
Or maybe they should build a bike lane to those bikes, gondolas.
Can you imagine a
Can
bike
you
lane?
imagine a train?
Oh.
No, this is a cool story. Gondolas just sound amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I love Idaho Springs.
A fun spot. So yeah, maybe I think they broke ground on it, so it could be coming soon.
Yeah, the Argo mine project has been in the works for 8 years or longer. So it's cool that we're finally maybe seeing it get started.
Well, there we are. Those were the wins. Those were the fails. That was the week.
This is it.
Here we are. End of the show.
Bye, Paul, Adrian.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be back. Hello, everybody. Sorry I've been away.
It's nice to have you back, Adrian.
Yeah.
See y'all next time.
Bye.
See ya.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Olivia Jewel Love and me, Paul Caroli. Peyton Garcia and Adrian Gonzalez write our morning newsletter, Hey Denver. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocachetes, with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell Idaho Springs real estate magnate Mary Jane Lovely about us next time you see her. You can sign up for that daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Who were our producers this week?